But I really did go into this whole experiment kind of hating the Cybertruck, hating everything it stood for, kind of hating the way it looked, the idea of all the excess, and I came away from it like loving
Respecting it.
No, loving it.
Loving it.
More than that.
After spending 3 days with the Cybertruck, Jason Cammisa just cannot stop raving about the Cybertruck.
But I went in with this, oh God, how am I going to make this positive? Like, you know, I can't bite the hand that feeds me. So I'm like, well, I'll just make it all about information. And I'll just be all about information, and I don't put my opinion in there. But during the course of filming, I went from thinking, oh God, why the f did they do this? To like, wow, why the f did they do this? They didn't have to, but they did it, and that's amazing.
If Jason sounds like a kid jumping up and down, there's a good reason for that. Earlier today, I saw this.
You won't be able to break into this, because look at that, it's tough as you like.
But we need to find out what exactly happened for Jason to go from hating the Cybertruck to now loving the Cybertruck.
What did you find lovable?
The fact that it does so many things so well without being excessive. There's still that like Lotus-like obsession with simplicity and lightweight that went into even this thing. Like the Aero wheel covers, like, so it's got these hubcaps on them. They're rubber. The reason they're rubber is because they tried to make them out of plastic, and the wheel would flex and the plastic would go flying off. So they made them out of rubber. But that means you can't curb the wheel.
Tesla is literally reinventing not just the steering wheel, but the actual wheel. No scratches. I really like that idea. But how come we never had a problem with plastic covers falling off?
They wanted a flush cover on that's durable, that you can take off-road and can do all this other shit. That's all. And they wanted it to protrude so you don't scratch your wheels. So they made this sort of new, never seen before type of wheel cover that's made out of rubber. It's genius. Like, I just gored the right rear wheel of my e-Golf again last month. Like, damn it, that's another $300 at the wheel shop. Wow. To not have to worry about that. The steering, by the end of filming, I actually re-recorded one of the segments so I can add the line. It makes you think, why the hell is steering not always been like this? Because I got into the Rivian afterwards. I'm like, oh my God, don't turn and get out of the parking spot.
Looking at the specs, really the only reason why you would still want to buy a Rivian is only if you really do not like how Cybertruck looks. That's the only acceptable answer to that question. The difference between the two especially becomes apparent when you compare things like, oh, does the Rivian also have a hospital-grade HEPA filter, which means you will never ever have to smell anyone's exhaust ever. But there were a few things that Jason did not like, but I don't think these are really deal breakers. I came from a BMW to a Tesla, and for me, some of these things that he's about to mention, I don't really mind them.
There are a couple things I don't love about it. I don't love the rear visibility. I don't love the lack of buttons. I would like to have stalks and shifter and turn signal.
Rear view visibility is definitely not a problem because you have this camera feed here, and not having stalks for turning is definitely fine because you never need to take off your hand off the wheel, so you know exactly where the button for the turn signal is the whole time, so it's definitely fine. It is a big problem in Europe for Model S and Model X owners, for example, because when you go into a roundabout, you don't really know where your button is for turn signals, but with the Cybertruck, that's not going to be the case at all. Although Tesla is going to have a hard time getting the Cybertruck approved for European roads. Because Europe does not like vehicles with sharp edges because that's more likely to hurt pedestrians more severely.
But like, the more you drive the thing around, you're like, this thing rides like a dream. That's the other thing. Like, at first I bitched about the ride, and then I realized it's only because I was in beast mode or whatever. I think it's called beast mode. Put it in regular ride, and it's Rolls-Roycean in its ride. It handles really well. None of the limit handling magic that Lucid's capable of. No Tesla has ever come close to that, but it handles quite well, as you'll see in the go-kart race.
The first time I was in a Rolls-Royce, I was actually a bit disappointed by the ride quality because I have heard so many great things about the Rolls-Royce ride quality, and then I got in and it was great, but it wasn't magical. So don't expect anything magical here, but I assume it's really good. You don't really get better than Rolls-Royce ride quality.
The brakes are indefatigable. I mean, I had them quite on fire. I don't think they were on fire, but they were definitely on smoke. Never stopped working. And this is racing a 6,700 pound truck on a go-kart track. And then the consistency and acceleration at battery state of charge, and just the thoughtfulness that went into every single part of this truck that they didn't have to do. That's the crazy thing. They didn't have to do anything. They could have out, made it look the way it did, and it would have been done, but they didn't. And then to watch that crash test at the end, and you're like, wait a second, what? Like the car just didn't give a about a 3,100 pound sled?
Yeah, so Porsche should go home. All the legacy manufacturers making EV.
I'm sorry, Mercedes, if I look at what Mercedes has done to that company that we love so much with the EQS,
yes,
which is, we discussed,
and the EQE,
one of the worst consumer products ever. Slight exaggeration.
No wonder that on average it takes 82 days to sell a Mercedes EV. We can say that for Tesla, that number is 16. Big! Massive difference between the two. And now watch Jason just go on this rant, obliterating all of the legacy automakers.
We're done with fuses. We're done with cross car wiring. We're done with ladder frames. We're done with unitary construction. We're done with paint shop. We're done with all of this other. We've just had it. We're throwing it all out. F your suppliers. F your dysfunction. F your 12 volts. We're just doing it our way from start to finish. Oh, and then we're throwing it out and doing it again because it wasn't good enough. By the time the regulars catch up to what Tesla's doing, we'll be too old. You'll especially be too old to drive.
Oh yes, and check this out. Top Gear just named the Cybertruck Disruptor of the Year.
And this car, well, it takes wedgy and edgy to a whole new level. It is, of course, the new Tesla Cybertruck, Elon Musk's stainless steel cyberpunk fantasy. If we're honest, it's a car we didn't think was ever going to make production, but hey, what do we know?
The media says that Tesla has a product problem, that is to completely ignore that the Model Y is going to be the world's best-selling vehicle this year, and that the Cybertruck has well over 1 million reservations officially confirmed by Tesla earlier, although I expect that number is going to drop now that people find out exactly how much the Cybertruck is. I want that Cybertruck to ramp as quickly as possible, and then I want to see that next generation vehicle from Tesla. Also, that headline is written in such an interesting way. Cybertruck aside, Tesla hasn't released a new consumer model in years. Cybertruck is a big deal. This reminds me of one guy who said, you know, excluding this one wife I have here, I'm not married. There's quite a bit of arguing happening on X about the Tesla Cybertruck pricing. I think it's important to remember just how much the Model Y cost 14 months ago, and that was $66,000, $90,000 for the most expensive one. And now the least expensive one is $44,000. And the most expensive Model Y Performance with FSD and every single possible option is $68,500. That is not $90,000 anymore. However, fund manager Gary Black says that charging this higher price right now and lowering the price later is thinking short-term mindset. This is interesting because sometimes Gary Black is accused of thinking short-term, but he explains here, Cybertruck is priced like Model X, so by definition, it will be more niche. Many on Wall Street were hoping Cybertruck would be more mainstream like the Model Y. Pricing it lower gets more volume up front and drives costs down quicker, but sacrifices some profits in the beginning. Now, this part, I'm having difficulty understanding. If Tesla has well over 1 million official reservations, some of them will be canceled though because of a higher price, but I think there will be plenty left. How will we have higher volume if we price the Cybertruck at a lower price? If we sell every single one at a higher price, but then we lower the price and we still sell the exact same amount because Tesla sells every single one that it produces, how does that drive volume? But Gary continues here, maybe he explains it in more detail. Many potential customers will wait to purchase until the price comes down. Yeah, I think that's true about many, but many are willing to buy it right now. If Cybertruck can get to 250,000 per year in terms of deliveries by 2025, then you will be correct that skimming was the better strategy than penetrating. I still believe Cybertruck will be a huge hit. Gary tries to explain himself further here, but I still really do not understand how we would sell more Cybertrucks in the short term if we price them at the lower price, because we have so many reservations. There is one possible reason why I would agree, okay, maybe it's better to price the Cybertruck at a much lower price right now from the beginning, and that is if you price at a lower price, then there will be so much media attention about the Cybertruck. Yes, they actually delivered on the low price, and we would have even more reservations. So you would have all of this extra media attention on the Cybertruck. So the argument would be, well, if you cut the price later, you will just not have that same media buzz about the Cybertruck anymore. So therefore, in total, when you look at everything in the long term, maybe it makes more sense to start at a lower price here. Maybe. One thing that we do not know though is, what are the margins actually going to be on this thing? How much does it cost for Tesla to make one Cybertruck once it ramps to, let's say, 250,000 Cybertrucks a year or 500,000 Cybertrucks a year? If we know for sure that indeed that cost will come down a lot, yeah, then maybe it would make some sense to start the Cybertruck at a lower price. But if the costs are not for sure guaranteed to come down really low, then maybe Tesla's strategy right now is making a lot of sense. After reading this post from Gary, I think I understand now why he wants the Cybertruck pricing to be lower from the beginning, and that is, if the pricing is lower, then Wall Street will think that Tesla will sell a lot more Cybertrucks in the long term. It's funny how Wall Street thinks. Tesla has this product and the prices in the long term clearly are going to come down, but yet Wall Street assumes that the prices are not really going to come down. I mean, that's just silly, but that's sort of how Wall Street works. They just look at, okay, what are the prices right now? And yeah, the prices will never change, so we're just gonna stick to that pretty much. That's not everyone on Wall Street, but that's sort of the consensus pretty much. I appreciate Gary's takes and his ability to explain how Wall Street thinks, but at the same time, it's a bit interesting that Gary says that Tesla is basically thinking short term here, even though Tesla, in my view, is basically ignoring the short-term noise. It is ignoring Wall Street. It does not want to please Wall Street in the short term, and therefore the prices of the Cybertruck are higher right now in the beginning, which hurts the long-term Tesla estimates, earnings estimates, deliveries estimates for the Cybertruck. I don't think that's really short-term thinking that Tesla is using here. If anything, it's more long-term thinking because Tesla wants to make some money at the same time, reduce the losses, and then in the long term, if the prices come down anyway, then these volume estimates are eventually going to come up, which means price targets will increase for Tesla stock, and then Tesla stock should rise together with these Tesla stock price target increases. So what Tesla is doing, to me it appears, is going to maximize both short-term profit but also long-term profit. You can do both. In the meantime, I saw a few people say some really ridiculous things like this. I find it funny how people use the 48-volt electrical architecture on the Cybertruck as a selling point for the consumer. It literally benefits Tesla from a manufacturing standpoint and provides almost zero real-time value to the consumer. Okay, well, let's ignore the fact that Tesla needs to use a lot less copper, which means the manufacturing costs are lower, which means Tesla can offer the Cybertruck at a lower price, but based on this logic here, lower prices for consumers literally add zero real-time value to the consumer. Not to mention that without this new architecture, you could not really have steer-by-wire, which is a huge deal. A pretty good comparison between the Tesla Cybertruck, Rivian, and Ford F-150 Lightning. The prices are pretty much all the same, although you do get a bigger tax credit when you get the Cybertruck instead of a Rivian. And there's one more thing that's missing here. We now know, I just found out yesterday from Lars, one of Tesla's executives, that the Cybertruck takes 350 kilowatt charging. So charging is clearly going to be much faster with the Cybertruck than anything else here. And because the batteries are so huge here, that is a very important difference. For something like a Tesla Model 3, because the battery is half the size of the Cybertruck, 250 is okay. I wish it was a bit higher, but it's okay. It's definitely fine. But if you're getting a truck with a huge battery, anything under 250 is just, what are you doing? Unless I'm eating extra spicy Mexican tacos and now my butt is on fire, with that one exception, I really don't like to sit for 36 minutes and just charge. 36 minutes each time, charging from 15 to 80%. My bathroom breaks are never that long. With a Cybertruck, you can do the same in about 18 minutes, Lars said. So just because of this one reason, if I ever had to supercharge a Ford F-150 Lightning, I would just never buy that vehicle. When you look at EV pickup truck with comparison with mirrors folded, the Cybertruck is actually the widest pickup truck. And despite being so wide, the Cybertruck has better aerodynamics, a better drag coefficient than this Bugatti. Cybertruck's drag coefficient is 0.335, and Bugatti is a bit under 10% worse than the Cybertruck, but you know, with Bugattis it depends on the color, so maybe this one is a bit better. Rivian's drag coefficient is even better than the Cybertruck's, but you cannot clean a Rivian by kicking it. Literally, all you will do by kicking the Cybertruck is just clean it. There's no damage. See? It's clean.
This giant windshield wiper is also hollow enough on the inside that
No way.
there is a pump underneath it that when you first press the button to like spray your windshield, it takes a beat to pump the entire thing full of windshield wiper cleaner, and then it sends the windshield down, and then there's like 10 holes on the wiper blade that all spray as it goes back to the top.
If I pull this little cord here, I can put the seats up there like that.
Oh.
Very clever, very practical, and as you can see, very cool.
Tesla is now actually really serious about paid search on Google. Look at this chart right here. Yeah, Tesla is definitely getting serious about advertising. And look at Google Trends. This is the Cybertruck search term. It's good that it has not died out after the first day. It still remains fairly strong, but we will see what the trend looks like maybe a month from now. For now, it's still pretty good. After the initial excitement, of course, I expect it to go down. But once people start test driving Cybertrucks, that trend possibly could reverse again. This is a bit peculiar, but there's a ton of interest in China for the Cybertruck, also in Norway and Denmark. And that perhaps sort of makes a bit of sense because we have seen some unique products that they're launched just in China. For example, remember the Cyber Spoon? That was exclusively available in China. If necessary to choose, would I prefer the Model 2 to accelerate or a fast Cybertruck Ram? Now, I personally think that Tesla can do both, and most people actually agree. But if I really had to choose, well, the next generation vehicle would be quite a bit more wider reaching. The volume would be much higher, so in the end, there would be more profit in that, so I would prefer Tesla to work on the next generation vehicle, but I think they can do both at the same time. There have been some resources, though, diverted specifically for the Cybertruck to speed up the ramp. Elon reposted this and it got over 50 million views on X. I think this ball does not look all that good, but the problem could be fixed if we had a regular car and you throw that ball and then the window shatters. But because we don't have that comparison, then it looks like a gimmick. So someone needs to take a Cybertruck and a regular car, throw that ball at a regular car and see what happens, and then do the exact same thing at the exact same with the exact same power and see what happens with the Cybertruck. We know that Apple stopped advertising on X, but the CEO of Apple keeps using X, which is really weird because unless they turn the ads back on, that was just all virtue signaling, cheap virtue signaling. So Detroit has installed the first wireless charging public roadway in the US, and it stretches a 1/4 mile. It certainly sounds like something Detroit would do. This is pretty much useless. First of all, when you charge wirelessly, you do lose some power, which makes the electricity basically more expensive for you to charge. Second, it's pretty expensive to do a road like that, I think. And third, charging speeds are getting better and better and better and better, and the batteries are becoming more dense, meaning the ranges increase while charging speeds decrease at the same time. Think about where we will be 15 years from now, and I think it is obvious that using something like that is a bit silly, but it is fully understandable because we are talking about Detroit here. How about instead of building roads like this, you just focus on making better EVs. Stop trying to avoid the transition to EVs and just focus on making better EVs, and then you don't need roads covered in wireless chargers. Tesla is about to lose a 5,000 euro ecological bonus in France because it will soon exclude EVs imported from China. The Model 3 will lose it, but the Model Y will probably be fine because these vehicles are made in Giga Berlin in Germany. So it's just the Model 3 really. The deadline for the Model 3 is December 15th. You have to order by then and then take delivery by March 15th. So you will probably see quite a few more deliveries than usual in France in this period of time as people rush to order their Model 3s. Then I thought about, could Tesla import Model 3s from Fremont, from California to Europe? But the way the legislation is written, it excludes all vehicles that have to be transported very far distances, so that would include the cars made in the US as well. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe right now. Actually, liking the videos is super important for the YouTube algorithm, so I really appreciate when all of you guys do that. My name is Matt Posius, and I will see you in tomorrow's video. Thank you so much for watching.